So Hare Krishna, dear devotees. I welcome all of you again to another great evening in this auspicious month of Kartik. And today is another special day, special in a different way, in a rather sad way, kind of, because it's the disappearance day of Srila Prabhupada today. So in 1977, on this day, as per the Tithi, Prabhupada left this world and continued his eternal seva to uh, Radha and Krishna. And so this day is remembered by everyone, especially within ISKCON and all the Vaishnavas worldwide in general. Because Prabhupada is that great Acharya who fulfilled the prophecy of Lord Chaitanya, wherein Lord Chaitanya said that my name will be sung in every town and village. So never in the history of mankind, I dare to say that such a feat was performed where uh, bhakti was carried by someone to the Western world from the Indian subcontinent, and in this way, the whole world was inundated with bhakti. So that is our dear Prabhupada. So yeah, I thought just remember him on this auspicious day because whatever we are doing here, we are getting together every Tuesday. We are reading his purports, right? And even the reason we are getting together, we even came together for that matter is because he brought this process of bhakti yoga to the Western world. Had he not been there, then yeah, who knows, right? So, in any case, with that, we go into this chapter today. So, this chapter is talking about King Puranjan leaving his body. By the way, I did not do Mentimeter, so sorry about that. I know all of you like Mentimeter, but I just thought I'll engage in a discussion, in a conventional discussion, the way we do always. But anyway, so this chapter is, we could break it up into multiple sections, kind of. So the first section is where the process of death begins, and here, Kalakanya, Prajvara, his soldiers, and all these names, they indicate fear and whatnot. They start plundering the city of Puranjan, which means that slowly Puranjan is dying. And then that those details are there in the first section, how Puranjan leaves his body. And then in the next section, it's about how Puranjan is remembering the interactions between him and his wife at the end of his life. And there actually Prabhupada writes in the purports about how an ideal grihastashram looks like. There he writes in one place that if a husband and wife are very much attached to one another in Krishna consciousness, they will both benefit because Krishna is the center of their existence. So this is what Prabhupada says. So although if the attachment between a husband and wife is devoid of Krishna consciousness, then Prabhupada says that is actually binding. It binds the both the husband and wife into material life. But when the relationship between a husband and wife, Krishna is the center of that relationship, then that relationship between a husband and wife actually can be liberating also. So, uh, yeah, otherwise, Prabhupada writes that if the husband is too much attached to his wife, he becomes a woman in his next life. The woman being attached to her husband becomes a man in her next life. And this is what we see here in this pastime also. And then we finally see Puranjan leaves his body, and while leaving his body he's thinking about his wife, and therefore he receives the body of a woman in his next life. Yam yam vapi smaran bhavam tyajatyante kalevaram tam tam evaiti kaunteya sada tad bhava bhavitah. Krishna says in the Gita that whatever state of mind one is at the time of death, that state one will attain without fail. So today I thought we'll discuss about death, although not a very great discussion, but it is definitely very interesting. Uh, I looked into some verses by Yudhishthir Maharaj and King Kulashekara in Mukundamala Stotra, some very nice verses which talk about this concept of ashcharya or wondrous, something that is wondrous. But we'll come to that. And then the next section is it describes how Puranjan was born as this as the daughter of this king of Vidarbha, Vaidarbhi, she's called, and she's a very well situated lady, a very beautiful lady, and then she gets married to King Malayadhwaja, who is a very great devotee of the Lord. And it describes how King Malayadhwaja eventually leaves home and goes to the forest to, the Kulachal is what it's called here in these verses, that place. And there he performs austerities focused on remembering the Supreme Lord Vishnu in his heart in the form of Paramatma. And then he finally perfects his life and eventually leaves his body. And here it is described how Vaidarbhi is very submissively serving King Malayadhwaja, very submissively serving him and following his footsteps in devotional service. So Prabhupada writes very extensively about the relationship between a guru and disciple in this section, in the purports in this section. So King Malayadhwaja is like the spiritual master, and Vaidarbhi is like the disciple, the sincere disciple who is following the spiritual master's instructions. So, and then finally, we see that King Malayadhwaja leaves his body. And after he leaves his body, then she's lamenting, or lamenting because she lost her husband. And at that point, one Brahmana comes. And can anyone say who is that Brahmana? So, who are
Is
you?
is it is it Narad Muni?
No, 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 no.
No.
Is
Super
it
soul.
the friend
Friend,
Abhivyat?
right?
I forgot the name, but yeah,
Oh, I get it. I get it. Yeah, I remember initially it was described. Yeah, yes, but you're right. He's
Avigyat something. Yeah,
yeah, Avidnyata. Yes, yes.
Avinyat. Yeah.
I don't know if yeah, he is Avidnyata actually. He is Avidnyata because it is said here that he was a friend of Puranjan in his, I mean, friend of Vaidarbhi from a previous life, that is in his life as Puranjan. So yes, so this Brahmana is actually the Paramatma. So the super soul who is coming to Vaidarbhi and giving her philosophy. And in this section, Prabhupada in his purports he talks a lot about the technicalities of the soul, the constitutional position of the soul, how the soul is quantitatively different from the Lord but qualitatively same as the Lord, and things like that. So this is like a small breakdown of the uh, chapter. So moving on to death, right? Moving on to the discussion about death. So death is something that is very unpleasant, and it is considered as one of the four problems of life that Krishna mentions. Janma mrityu jara vyadi dukkha doshanu darshanam. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna mentions that a real wisdom, real knowledge, he lists out many qualities there. Amanitvam, adambhitvam, ahimsa, kshantir, arjavam, acharya, upasanam, shaucham, sthairyam, atma vinigraha, and so on, right? Amanitvam, humility, adambhitvam, pridelessness. These, so Krishna is listing out the qualities of someone who is in knowledge, right? And there, one of the things he says is recognition of birth, old age, disease, and death as the real problems of life. So Krishna says, that is one of the symptoms of true knowledge. And uh, that is one thing that Krishna very uh, uh, poignantly mentions in the Bhagavad Gita. And also in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna mentions about death at multiple places. Of course, on a contextual level, it is a war, so there is going to be death, but there is a higher, non-contextual, universal principle behind that as well, because everybody dies. Everybody has to face the ultimate examination of death, right? That is the reason that universality of Krishna's instructions of the Bhagavad Gita applies to all of us. But in any case, coming to the first question that I wanted to discuss, why do we fear death? Or why do people in general fear death? We don't want death, right? Krishna also categorizes them as categorizes death as one of the problems of life. So why is it that we fear death? What about it makes it so undesirable? Any thoughts? You can put in the chat if don't want to.
Because we are going to leave our loved ones.
Yes, very true. Yes, fear of losing, fear of the unknown. Yeah, very true, very true. So, um, so fear of losing our loved ones, fear of losing not just our loved ones but even our possessions, right? That is definitely a very great fear. Fear of the unknown, right? Some people actually are in denial. Some people will come to a verse actually that Yudhishthir Maharaj spoke. Some people they are in denial that does not, if even if death is there, it's far away, right? And even if someone does believe in death, then as Nitya Mataji mentioned, there is a lot of unknown. Like what will happen post-mortem? What will happen to me post-mortem? Yes, exactly. Gaur Kumar Prabhu is because we're eternal beings and it is not natural to die. Exactly. That is also something I was looking for. Definitely. We are eternal beings and we don't want to die. And it's like unnatural for us and that experience of death. And although, Chaitanya Charan Prabhu puts it in a way that we see death all around us, we see death everywhere. Now, if we were actually logically speaking, we should have accepted that, death will come to me also, right? Because death is everywhere. We see everyone die around us. But yet, we don't want to die. Death is common around us, yet we don't want to die. Why is that? He asks. The reason is what Prabhuji mentioned here, that we are eternal beings and it is not natural for us to die. Therefore, although we see death all around us, although we see temporariness all around us, we don't want to die. We want permanence. There is an innate desire for permanence within us. That is because we are eternal beings. Yes. Any other thoughts? Yeah, and death is associated with pain, right? Old age, disease, and whatnot. And yeah, so these are some of the reasons why death is not really desirable. But then what happens is there are various ways people deal with this fear. So it is, one way that people deal with this fear of death is through denial. Okay, and that denial is what Yudhishthir Maharaj says in Mahabharata. So Yudhishthir Maharaj, this is as part of the Yaksha Prashna, when the Yakshas are asking questions to Yudhishthir Maharaj. I think it's from there. I don't remember now. It is Vanaparva, so yeah, it does sound like Yakshkan, the Yaksha Prashna. So there Yudhishthir Maharaj is asked, what is the most wondrous thing that you see in the world, dear king? And that time he says, Ahani Hani Bhutani Gachanti Hayamalayam Shesha Sthavaram Icchanti Kim Ascharyam Atah Param. Hundreds and thousands of living entities meet death at every moment, but a foolish living being nonetheless thinks himself deathless and does not prepare for death. This is the most wonderful thing in this world. So, so again, coming back to the question, right? Again, opening it up, how do people deal with the fear of death? One is, of course, denial. What is another way that people deal with, and we'll see actually multiple reasons. But before we get into those, I just wanted to know from all of you, how do people, or how do we in general deal with the fear of death? Yes, for sure. We as in devotees, yeah. Yeah. Any thoughts on this?
Can you please explain the question again, Prabhu?
So how do we deal with the fear of death? Like one example is people go into denial, And that's what Yudhishthir Maharaj is alluding to over here, that um, we see death around us, but we behave as if we are deathless, and we do not prepare for it. But yeah, that is one way, denial. What else is, how do people deal with the fear of death?
Not paying attention to it. Oh, I think that is denial, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Accepting the fear of death. Okay. Okay. Accepting the fear of death. Can you elaborate on that, Nupur?
Very well for you. Uh, so what I was thinking was like acceptance that it is ultimately going to come.
Hmm.
Like constantly like trying to tell yourself so that you do not get into denial, because every time we see death around us,
Hmm.
be it humans or even the other organisms as well.
Okay.
So we are trying to not overlook the symbols, the signs and symbols around us.
Hmm.
That's one thing that comes to the top of my mind.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. I think we have some hands raised. Krishnan Prabhu.
I think the other way people deal with death is by doing good deeds so that they can, because they see the promise of the higher planets. So that's the other way, even if they do accept death, they say, let me do some good deeds so that I'll get some good, collect some positive karmas.
Yeah, very, very true. Yeah, that's a very, very beautiful point. Yeah, people, they think that, okay, if there is death, then let me do good as long as I'm living. Why not? Yeah. And yeah, Vishal Prabhu, you have something to say?
Yeah, I was thinking along similar lines, Prabhu. Since death is even inevitable, they
Hmm.
try to do something with their life so that they're remembered, so that their death is not in vain. So it
Hmm.
need not be good deeds, but then, like, in some way that, like, that they've made an impact on somebody else's life, positive or negative. But yeah,
Yeah,
that's what I was thinking.
leaving a legacy.
Yeah.
There was this ad when I was young. तुम समय की रेत पर छोड़ के चलो निशान देखे पूरी जमीन देखे आसमान. Right. So yeah, people want to leave a legacy. They want to leave a mark in the history. Yeah. And Gaurakumar
There is,
Prabhu
Yeah.
writes. Sorry.
Yeah. There's a, sorry. Yeah. Sorry.
No, go ahead. Go ahead,
Go.
Prabhu.
And there's another Kabir Doha, Prabhu. कबीरा जब पैदा हुए तो जग हंसा हम रोए जग हंसा हम रोए
Hmm.
ऐसी करनी कर चलो कि हम हंसे जग रोए.
Yeah. Yeah. It's true.
there's
I'm.
another,
Something sim.
there's another, of course, Bollywood song, but very nice song. Apni kahani chhod ja, kuch to nishani chhod ja.
Uh,
It's an old song from the 50s.
yeah. Yeah.
And also
One.
there is there is also an Indrajumna story of King Indrajumna coming back to the earth and then looking if people remember him. That story is also there, where so the longer okay, this is what I understood from the story, that as long as people remember you on this earth, that is the amount of time that you spend in the higher planets.
Huh.
And the minute people forget you, you fall down, you come down.
Mhm.
Your all your credit is done.
Yeah. Yeah.
And this is true in the Mexican, if you've seen that movie, the Pixar movie about Mexican, I forget the name of the movie now. That also has a similar concept.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. That's true. Very beautiful. Yeah. Yeah, and Gaur Kumar Prabhu wrote that as devotees, end of one chapter and start of a new chapter. Yes, definitely. There is a verse in Gita about that, very famous verse, 2.13. And as karmis, escape from the reality. Yes, escape from the reality, and this doing good is uh, they like being in denial then results in some people in trying to escape from that reality. Then people might want to enjoy, eat the ice cream before it melts, kind of a philosophy. So anyway, it is going to be there. So let me just escape that reality by getting into all sorts of indulgences and enjoyment, right? So, what is that verse? Charvak Muni wrote that verse. Nridam kritva gritam pibet yavat jivet sukham jivet. So he says, anyway, the body is going to turn into dust at death. Then what you should do is you should drink as much ghee as you can in your lifetime. So apparently that time eating ghee was considered to be a very good form of enjoyment. So Charvak Muni, Charvakism is actually a hedonistic philosophy, and that is the reason he has such verses. But anyway, yes, that is one thing. And then Mataji said, I feel there is a spectrum in how devotees feel about death. Example, neophytes to advanced devotees. Yes, that is true, Mataji. That is true. Okay. Do you want to explain maybe some of the shades of that spectrum?
Yeah, so an advanced devotee may feel like, yes, it's the end of one chapter, start of a new chapter, and there is no actually they don't fear death. They welcome it, they embrace it gracefully.
Yes.
Whereas the neophyte, not having enough knowledge about the process of death in this world, and then how it transforms into the other world, may may get bewildered, because they are neither in the completely understanding the true knowledge about the death, nor they are like karmis, where they can completely indulge themselves before they have karmis have a bucket list of things to do before death, and they're neither there nor here kind of a thing. And so that's where a lot of bewilderment and pretension and all those things happen. And yeah, I'm not sure what I guess, like yum yum vapi, whatever state they remember at the time of death, that state they will attain, I guess. Yeah.
Very true. We will discuss that. The next theme is going to be that, like, what determines what we think at the time of death.
Okay.
Yeah. But yes, thank you so much, Mataji. Beautiful.
And there are also in between, between 0 and 100, there are many in between status where they've crossed the neophytes, but not yet advanced.
Yes.
And yeah, they're also, they know, they have the knowledge, they know it theoretically, but yeah, they don't know. Well, when the reality comes, they may or may not, fail. Yeah. They may fail, they may not. Yeah. Whatever.
Yeah, that jnana is there, but there is no
Yeah,
vijnana. There is no
correct.
realization.
Correct. When the realization, for the realization to happen, they have to die.
Yes.
I
I mean,
guess.
even if one realizes that they are eternal beings, like
Yeah.
even that,
Yeah, correct.
yeah, but even that is difficult.
Very difficult. Yes. Yeah.
Very true, Mataji. Thank you so much. Ritesh Prabhu. Yes.
Yes, I was just reflecting on what Mataji was saying. More like if we are living, it's also like how we are living each day. Probably like if every day we are living, and there is, I think, a famous thing like live every day as if it's your last. So, and in that context, if we are creating more attachments during our day-to-day life, we are actually making more fearful with like death for ourselves. Instead, how much are we freeing ourselves? How much are we actually not getting attached? Actually make it easier to not fear death.
True. Very true.
Because we then want to hold on to that and not live as if it's gonna be last, maybe.
Correct. Yeah, our disposition, as Mataji mentioned, like Mataji mentioned the spectrum, right? So similarly, our disposition is based on where we are in the spectrum. Like, are we creating more and more attachments, or are we getting rid of attachments? But again, getting rid of attachments also is a very, very it can take up a whole session. What does it really mean to get rid of attachments? So, but yeah, some other time. But yes,
Yeah.
and then uh, so Prabhuji is quoting Narad Muni. Yeah, this is the fame. O king, as small particles. Oh, Chitraketu Maharaj. Yes. As small particles of sand sometimes come together and are sometimes separated due to the force of waves. The living entities who have accepted material bodies sometimes come together and sometimes separated by the force of time. Yeah, very true. Yeah. And then Upuri Singh, I could relate to Nitya Mataji's points. I was absolutely bewildered when I saw passing of Nayan Sundari Mataji exactly 2 years ago. So see, this is another point that I've observed like a common thing amongst devotees, that when they get the news of certain terminally debilitating disease that they have, they actually get sobered up. They The advancement is very swift. Like, they will be like in a very short period of time, they mature so much, and they take such intense shelter of Krishna. And I've read articles about this. I've heard SB Keshav Maharaj talking about this. He had a friend, a fellow brahmachari, who got the news of his terminal illness, and then how he reacted to it. So it's like, I've seen this common theme in devotees, that we all may remember Madan Mohan Mohini Mataji also. So Madan Mohan Mohini Mataji, actually, she's from Pune. They used to live in Pune. I have seen her, uh, like, I've seen her walk. I've seen her in that phase. So it was also very tough for me in one sense to see how that disease debilitated her. But the kind of wisdom that she brought out, the realizations that she brought out in her difficult phase, those were like absolute gems, actually. Yeah, I haven't been able to read her book. She wrote a book also. But in any case, yeah. So coming back to the spectrum, right? Krishna also talks about the spectrum of how different people see death. Hmm? And that is what we'll see now. So in different modes, right, people in different modes see death differently. So people in the mode of ignorance become overwhelmed and paranoid when they see death, and that's why they want to avoid all thoughts of death entirely. Otherwise they become helpless, right? This is the denial part. Mode of ignorance is denying, it's not going to happen to me. Let me just engage in whatever indulgences I want, things like that. Then mode of passion is little higher. In one sense, we accept at least that death is going to be there, but then we want to enjoy as much as we can. We want to enjoy before we lose our youth. So this Yayati asking his sons for youth, right? And one of them, who gives? I think Yadu. No, Yadu refuses, but I forget who gives. But yeah, so that is the in the mode of passion, we want to enjoy as much as we can before death hits. So that is a mode of passion. In goodness, death we see as an opportunity, and we ask some higher questions. What am I, like, who am I? What is this world? Why do I experience death? What is really valuable, and things of that nature, right? And in Shuddha Sattva, which is actually transcendental to the modes of material nature, actually, is where we see the death as a doorway to reunite with Krishna in eternal love. So Prabhupada writes this analogy in one of his small books, that he gives the analogy of a tigress. So when a tigress holds her prey in her mouth, the prey, whatever animal that is writhing in fear, because the animal knows that now the tigress is going to eat him or her. But in that same mouth, when the tigress holds her cubs, the cubs are feeling shelter because, oh, my mother is holding me. So similarly, Prabhupada writes that death, if for a person who is not spiritually aware, spiritually realized, for that person, it's like a painful experience. It's a fearful experience. It's paranoia, actually. But for a devotee, it's like Krishna's embrace. Now through this death, I'm going to be able to reunite with Krishna. So yes, there is a spectrum, and even as devotees, we might be in one of the modes. Being a devotee doesn't automatically mean that we are in Shuddha Sattva. Yes, we may be in Shuddha Sattva in certain phases when we are like really intensely chanting, we are in the present moment and things like that. But then, yeah, even we, fluctuate between the modes. And yeah, so that is one thing. And then, this is that verse that I was mentioning, Dehinosmin yatha dehe kaumaram yovanam jara tatha dehantara praptir dhiras tatra namuhyati. As the embodied soul continuously passes in this body from boyhood to youth to old age, the soul similarly passes into another body at death. A sober person is not bewildered by such a change. Right? So this sober person is like a self-realized soul, right? He's like the higher end of that spectrum that Mataji mentioned. So now agreed, this is death, fear, fear of death is there to all of us, even as devotees. Now, how do we deal with that, right? Now, yes, we did quote yam yam api smaran bhavam, whatever state of mind is at the time of death, that state one attains without fail, and we see how Puranjan attains that state, right? He becomes a woman. What else? What other examples can you think of where in the Shastras where this point comes out very graphically? This point about whatever state of mind one is in, that state the soul attained in the next life. Bharat Maharaj, exactly. Yeah, very famous example. Very famous example. Yeah. Yeah, so there are many such examples, and these are Gajendra. Yes, Gajendra. Hoo, yes, the crocodile. Yeah. So very true. Even no, no, sorry. Yeah, but there are so many such examples that are there. So now moving on, right? Moving on to the next question. What determines our consciousness at the time of death is what I wanted to bring up. So yeah, anyone has any thoughts? What determines our consciousness at the time of death? Any thoughts on this, dear devotees? So, I mean, we kind of discussed that till now, but yeah, just to go deeper into those points.
Whatever we focus during our life,
Yeah,
our intense moments,
correct.
how many of such intense moments we have, whether they are of material in nature or spiritual in nature, that will get replayed in our mind at the time of death.
True, very true. Yeah, yeah. I mean, often we think doing something repeatedly will ensure that we will be able to think of that at the time of death. But then, there is a deeper aspect as well. Just doing something repeatedly, is that the requirement, right? Because I personally have certain vivid memories of my childhood, or even vivid memories of many years ago, like certain important life events which do not happen repeatedly. Like, you do not get married repeatedly unless you're a Kshatriya king in Satya Yuga, or Treta Yuga or Dwapar Yuga. In Kali Yuga, at least you get married once. So those are intense moments, like when you get married, that those impressions stay. Similarly, childbirth, for mothers especially, it's an intense moment. So every mother remembers childbirth. Every father also remembers childbirth when their kids are born. So although these things happen only a couple of times in our lives, but yet we remember them. So yes, repeatedly doing something is one criteria, but then as you mentioned, Mataji, how much focus we had when we did that thing, that is also important. So what else? So how does focus come? Maybe we can discuss that. How does focus come in doing something that we do? Any ideas?
You
So
mean how to increase the intensity of whatever we do? Like focus,
yeah.
focus comes or okay.
Yes. How to increase the intensity of what we do, and yeah, how can we achieve that high level of focus in what we do? Discipline, yes. Discipline is one thing.
Yeah.
I did like mention that term just few minutes ago. I don't know if anyone remembers that.
Mm.
So how does focus come? And this actually Gaur Kumar Prabhu and you actually Nitya Mataji, you had told us before we got initiated. Few days before we got initiated, you spoke to us, like myself. Then there was Vallabh Chaitanya Prabhu, Vrinda Gopi Mataji, Ananya Bhakti Mataji. You spoke to us and addressed us. So there is something very specific I'm looking for. Anyway, I'll reveal it. So, being in the present when we do something, like totally being in the present, not thinking about the past, not thinking about the future, not thinking about anything else, but being in the present. That, ensures a very undeviated focus. Yes, you remember now. Yeah, that was a very nourishing thing for me to hear actually, especially before going to take my vows. And uh, yeah, so when we are in the present moment, when we do something, that is when we really get the most focus, and that is when we really get the most nourishment out of something. So yeah, I mean that is what differentiates. We could repeatedly keep doing something. We could repeatedly this is what I've observed in my life also. I can repeatedly keep reading. I can repeatedly keep even hearing. I can repeatedly chant, right? I can do all these things. But then unless I'm in the present moment when I do these things, when I do these activities of bhakti, not just reading, hearing, chanting, but even like sevas and whatnot. When we do those things, when we are in the present moment, that is when we will have most nourishment out of those things, and that is when we will be able to focus in the most intense way, in the highest way possible. So that is what is one thing, and that will affect our consciousness at the time of death. That is what we will see at the time of death. And if we have been in the present moment during the right occasions, then that will ensure that we get a better destination. Yes, Mataji.
Yeah, I recently heard a class by Radhikaraman Prabhu in ISV. He was talking about prayers, like how to pray. It's a two-part series where he mentions that as devotees, we should keep our personal Bhagavatam. By that, what he means is that Bhagavatam is a story about Krishna, to remember Krishna, right? So personal Bhagavatam is how I felt Krishna in my life. Start having a note, make a diary or start a note of it. It could be very small things. Like I remember Krishangi, who is Venkatabhatta Prabhu's wife. She recounted one day that it was an Ekadashi day, and at school she went there and she was very hungry, and there was nothing to eat. And suddenly, one of her colleagues offered a sweet potato fry,
Yeah.
which was completely Ekadashi, and she made sure what are the ingredients and all that. And then she was like, okay, thank you, Krishna. She was like super, like really, really hungry at that on that day, and she could not even focus on things. So at that time, out of nowhere, the colleague, shared the sweet potato fries with her, and she felt that Krishna helped her, um, keep the vow, at the same time helped her to get relief from the hunger. So like that, small things. Yeah, how Krishna showed up today. Yeah, something like that. So just keep a count of it, and it could be small things. That's what I'm saying. It's and then when uh, if and when, I mean, this is a dukalayam asashvatam, so this is a world full of miseries. So somewhere down the line we'll have some kind of a calamity or some kind of a reversal. So this personal Bhagavatam will help us reestablish that faith, reestablish a hope, and increase the intensity of our bhakti sadhana and everything. So that's what he was saying. So that was very very, very nice. And he was also saying that these are the things that will help us at the time of death. These intense moments that we feel, it could be it not be intense for somebody else. Like if I tell you about sweet potato fries, what is the big deal about somebody giving sweet potato fries, but for that person at that moment it is intense. um, it may outwardly seem like a very trivial scenario, but for us, when we are going through it, that intensity, if we recount it in a diary or in a journal format,
Yeah.
then, and every now and then go through it, that is that amplifies that intensity, and that will kind of gives that momentum to kind of exit.
True.
Yeah.
True. Yeah, very nice, Mataji. Actually, since you brought up journaling, right? So this is something that Vrajvihari Prabhu had said in that podcast he did with Namras Prabhu, and that really stuck with me. I was sharing that few days ago with Manishika Mataji also. So he says that by journaling, and he was talking about gratitude journal, like about how he saw how he felt grateful, how we feel grateful to Krishna in various things that happened, like the example you gave, right? So in terms of gratitude journal, he was saying that through gratitude journaling we may not necessarily increase our love for Krishna, we may not necessarily become pure devotees overnight, but what he said was through this gratitude journaling we will definitely start appreciating Krishna's love for us more. So that was something very nice that stuck in my mind. So definitely counting our blessings, and so I remember one incident that happened with me. I was a very small kid, not a devotee or anything, but when I look back at that, right, I feel very grateful. So same, I was in, I think, second grade, maybe, I think second grade, and it was lunchtime at school, and for some reason my dabba hadn't arrived. So a guy was supposed to pick my dabba up from home and bring it to the school, which was like about 1 mile or 1.5 miles away. But then something happened, some mix up happened that it didn't show up, and I was sitting alone. And many of my friends' parents would come, mothers especially, they would get the lunch and they would put the mats and everything under various trees that were in the school and sit down and have lunch. And then I was sitting under a tree without anything to eat, and I was just looking here and there, wondering what to do. And then one friend of mine that time, Muslim friend, so his mom saw me like that, and out of very genuine compassion, she asked me, Jitendra, tera dabba kidhar hai? And then I said, auntie nahi aaya, and whatever. And she said, come, join us, eat, come and join us. We have enough food, so you can also eat. And Salman was his name. my friend's name, so you both can eat. Then I was a little hesitant because I don't know what food they had brought, and whether it was meat and whatnot. So I was hesitant to go and eat. And she understood that. She understood that I was hesitant, and immediately what she did was she took out a 5p coin and gave it to me. She said, I know you're not going to eat what I got. You take this money and go and get a sandwich for yourself. And as soon as she did that, it touched my heart a lot. It has stayed with me even now. It's what, like 20 years ago maybe this happened, but yeah. Now when I look back and recount this, I feel grateful that to Krishna that showed up like that, whatever. Any other thoughts on this? Very nice discussion. Are there any caveats we should be aware of in this, dear devotees?
I had I don't know if it's a caveat or not, but you mentioned focusing on the right things, like something like that. So would you be able to elaborate, like what are the right things, or how do we see if it is the right thing or not? Because we can be focusing on other things as well.
I mean, basically connected to Krishna.
Okay.
The 9 processes of bhakti.
I see.
Yeah, you might be just totally absorbed when you're taking darshan one particular day. Just comes out of nowhere. You are not expecting it, but you just felt very nourished by taking darshan, or you felt really nourished by chanting. So these are like glimpses of that ecstasy that Krishna gives, so that we can retain them and we can keep striving for them, and that way, that absorption that we experience in sevas. So yeah, but anything connected to Krishna.
Okay. Thank
you. Yes. Any other thoughts, dear devotees, on this? Being in the present. And so if not, it's 9:59. There were many points in the purport that Prabhupada wrote in this chapter. So let me just see if there is something I should mention. Yeah, Prabhupada writes one place about Vaishnavas having differences of opinions. So yeah, he writes in one of the purports that among Vaishnavas, there may be some difference of opinion due to everyone's personal identity, but despite all personal differences, the cult of Krishna consciousness must go on. We can see that under the instructions of Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj began preaching the Krishna consciousness movement in an organized way within the past 100 years. The disciples of Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Maharaj are all God brothers. I mean, are all my God brothers, is what Prabhupada is writing. And although there are some differences of opinion, and although we are not acting conjointly, every one of us is spreading this Krishna consciousness movement according to his own capacity and producing many disciples to spread it all over the world. As far as we are concerned, we have already started the ISKCON movement, and many thousands of Europeans and Americans have joined this movement. Indeed, it is spreading like wildfire. So yeah, it will go on without distinction of caste, creed, color, or country. No one can check it. Sorry, I see a message from Vallabh Chaitanya Prabhu. How Krishna showed up today? Question mark. So is it like you want to elaborate on that, Prabhuji? Or
I think he mentioned that when I said Krishnangi wrote how I felt Krishna today, it was like that. It was how Krishna showed up today. That's what she mentioned. Yeah, actually, yeah, he.
Got it.
I remember that. That's how it was. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just want to share also that it's very easy to like many of you are in late 20s, early 30s. Before you know it, you'll be 40s, 50s like us. And the thing is, yeah, it's the life just runs very fast in our within in front of our eyes, and we may not realize it. And these intense moments, we don't have to wait for like something bad or some kind of a reversal to happen, so that nobody waits for that. I'm just saying that, but majority of the pastimes and stories we hear around among devotees is like, okay, something happened to them, and then their intensity in Krishna consciousness shot up, right? But we can one thing that S.B. Keshav Swami Maharaj mentions is that the easiest thing that we can do is to offer obeisances and namaskuru, right? And while we offer obeisances, offer in the mood of Bali Maharaj and how he had completely given up everything, right? Like, when he says, take my head, just put your third step on my head, Krishna, right? So like that, he says, when you're offering, to paying obeisances, we can pray in such a way that, okay, by this, we can do our prayers, we can say Shripada Krishna Prashta Bhutale, all that, Namaste Saraswati Devi, and then Hare Krishna, everything we can say. And at the end, when we are offering obeisances, I surrender all my ego, all my pride, all my anger, everything unto your lotus feet, Krishna. We can just offer this prayer. And, I feel like that is a very easy thing to do. And it can be from the heart also. Whatever we feel like that day that is bothering us, I offer that envy, I offer that anger, I offer that thing to you, and to you, Krishna. Like that. It's Krishna will definitely reciprocate for that.
Beautiful, Mataji. Thank you. Thank you for mentioning that. Yeah. Any other points, dear devotees? Or yeah. Prabhupada talks a lot about Guru, Chaitya Guru within the heart, and how Chaitya Guru inspires us to go to a Guru in the world around us and receive initiation. And yeah, some beautiful points Prabhupada mentions about that. So yeah, if there are no other points, then yeah, we can end. Any announcements, Gaur Kumar Prabhu?
No, Prabhu, no announcements. Thank you.
Okay. So we still need one devotee to sign up for the last chapter of this section. So 4.31, Narada instructs the Prachetas. So if anyone is interested, please sign up. And with that, with that, we'll be booked for the entire remaining part of this chapter, of this